Welcome back to DC Today. We are continuing our conversation with Deon. Deon, let's talk about some of the stuff that folks say they are seeing the police do. Is there action being taken against the police?
Well, again, there was a lot of videos that had surfaced at the height of the George Floyd protest. And again, I mentioned that, officers were shooting tear gas, they were pepper spraying people, they were shooting pepper balls at a lot of people. A lot of people didn't like that, and a lot of people thought there was egregious actions and excessive use of force on behalf of the police officers. So what happened in the days that came after that? Well, there were 25 complaints that was filed against the police department here, and there was a lot more that's going to be filed up in Columbus, in the states, near the state's capital as well. Now, they didn't necessarily say what those complaints are for, but just the sheer number that there was 25 of them, says a lot. And then again, some of the videos that you've seen with the over-aggressive police officers, if you would have it, that's another thing. So time will tell. I know that the committee that looks at these complaints says that 5 of them were deemed very serious and worthy of some type of investigation. So of the 25, 5 were, we'll have to see if any disciplinary actions may come to some of the police officers who were involved in some of those incidents.
There have been some well-known newsrooms where Black reporters are saying, listen, we need more of us out covering these protests. We're the ones that can really tell the story. Do you feel that way too? Because you were out there amongst the protesters. Do you feel a white colleague or somebody of another race could tell the story like you can tell it?
Well, yeah, that's if we can keep from going to jail, because a lot of journalists are going to jail. I've mentioned to some other people before, but just a week or two ago, I was trying to link up with a colleague at one of these protests, and we were meeting at a rallying point, and he never made it to our rallying point, which was a 7-minute walk, because he got arrested by police, and 7 officers took him down. It took 7 officers to take him down after he showed his press credentials and said that he was a reporter.
Black reporter?
He wasn't Black, but he wasn't white, maybe Middle Eastern. So he was a journalist of color. And the 7 police officers detained him, and we never really met at our rallying point. Of course, they ended up releasing him when they really figured out he was a reporter, but he had a badge on. So I say all that to say different reporters bring different things to the table. I think that a Black person can tell a Black story, but that doesn't mean that a white person or Hispanic person can't tell the story either. But I think that it just drives home and hits home for a lot of Black reporters, because what's happening out in public are confidential conversations that they've had with their relatives and friends and people who they're close to for years. But now it was kind of swept under the rug, but now the world can see what's going on. So a Black person can give you that insight and that perspective into what's going on, maybe more so than a white person. But then sometimes white people have had those experiences too, and you don't always know the backgrounds or the way that they grew up. So I think a lot of people bring different things to the table when it comes to reporting, which is a good thing.
Which does it make it more challenging as a Black reporter to cover something like this? Because like you said, so many of us, if you haven't experienced it, family members that have. My parents growing up in the segregated South and telling me those stories. So we know these stories, but we're supposed to go in there, obviously, as reporters, as journalists, and be, totally unbiased. Do you find it difficult sometimes?
No, not at all. And you have to maintain your professionalism when you're a journalist. You have to maintain your integrity. You never want to inject yourself into the story. It's no difference than if you, let's say, majored in criminology, and then you see a police officer working a crime scene. Your degree in criminology will help you with that. I just happen to be a Black man. I've been in this shell and this skin my whole life, so I know what it's like to be Black. So that kind of gives me an advantage. But every reporter is going to bring something to the table. But at the mark of it all, what it comes down to is you have to do your job, and it has to be without you being slanted or being biased in any way, shape, or form. You have to understand that there's 2 sides and maybe even 3 sides to every story, and your job is to interview all parties involved and tell the story, regardless about how personally you feel about it or not. If you can't do that, then you shouldn't be a journalist.
Absolutely not. Well, stay well, and we will see you soon.
I appreciate you having me on your show.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. Stay with us. More of DC Today when we come back.